Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we are here to talk about my 5-star predictions. If you've been on my channel long, you probably have seen this series. I talk through 5 books that I believe to be 5-star predictions, and then I also let you know how my last list went. So this is just another edition of that. I don't necessarily have a theme this time. All of these books are books I'm very excited about. They're 5-star predictions though. Obviously I'm going to be excited about them, but I think that all of them, with the exception of one that I'm kind of eking in there just a little bit, have a historical element to them. They are also all fantasy, so fantasy historical fiction with some other genre blends mixed in. But before we get to the new list, I do need to talk to you guys about my old list and whether or not I was successful. I'm going to start with the successes. So the highest rated prediction that I made was a 4.5 star, and that was Fantasticland, which is my most recent read. I was waiting until spooky season, and I am really excited that I did enjoy this. It was different than I anticipated, but I did really enjoy the story and how it was organized. I'm gonna give you guys a more in-depth explanation in my video coming up on the 29th, where I review 6 different horror novels, but I will just tell you here that this is a book that features a theme park that is hit by a hurricane. Some people are not able to evacuate this area, and so they are stuck in this theme park called Fantasticland. And what you are reading through are the interviews of the survivors of this event, because stuff goes crazy, people die, people get decapitated, they're tortured, like there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens within this theme park, and you are reading through this journalist's interviews that he had with the people who have survived the incident. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's definitely gory, so make sure you check trigger warnings before you go in, but it's good for spooky season. My next success was a novel love story, which I ended up reading 4.25 stars. This is an Ashley Poston, which is the reason I picked this up and the reason I put it on this prediction list, because I absolutely love The Dead Romantics. I did like this one less than The Dead Romantics. It was a little bit cartoony, but if you want a fun-loving, just sweet romance story, I do think this is a good one. In this, you follow a main character, I'm not going to remember her name, who essentially, in the midst of traveling to a trip that she was planning, her car breaks down and she gets stuck in this town. And the town happens to be a town in one of her favorite romance novels, a romance series that was never finished by the author because the author died tragically young. And so she realizes that these characters are kind of stuck in time in this town. There is a grumpy bookshop owner who doesn't really belong, and she takes it upon herself to try and figure out how to help the town. She thinks that she essentially has to give the town its happily ever after, and so they can move on in time. The character herself is dealing with a lot of grief and some self-discovery elements as well, which I did enjoy. So I would definitely say it's not a serious romance. It is very bubbly, but it is a good time. Next, we have The Last Murder at the End of the World, which is by Stuart Turton, who is the author of 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. Yeah, I always want to say Evelyn Hugo, but anyway. This is about an island that is the last island that is alive on Earth's surface because there has been something that has happened that has killed the rest of humanity. And there is a murder that happens that peaks off this timer. And essentially, if they don't solve this murder within 107 hours, I think it's 107 hours, the barriers that are keeping the island safe from the rest of the world will go down and everyone on the island will die. And so you have to go through how to solve the murder. Everybody on the island has forgotten the night before, so they've forgotten the events that led up to this person's death, and so you have to try and solve the mystery with them. I was very disappointed. If I didn't say already, I did rate this a 3-star, and I just thought that this was rather messy. I was very intrigued at first, but as we continued through the story, I thought the storyline, the mystery, got very convoluted very quickly. I also didn't really connect with any of the characters. The Some of the intrigue, the twists that happened along the way, I wasn't really enamored with either. It was just okay for me. I do think that it was pretty creative as far as the storyline goes, but I don't think that it was detailed in a way that I didn't guess what was happening by any means, but I got a little lost in the amount of things that occurred, and it felt like a lot of telling, not showing in the end. Lastly, we need to talk about the last two books, which were both DNFs. Oh, friends. This series, if anything, has made me question whether or not I know my own reading taste, because I thought I was going to absolutely love these. One of them I thought was going to be one of my favorite books of the year. The other I was taking a little bit of a risk with, but it sounded weird, and I do like weird books. So the first, which was the book I thought was going to be my favorite of the year, was A Short Walk Through a Wide World. This book was touted as an Addie LaRue knockoff, essentially. Not knockoff, but like similarly themed book, I guess. And no, I DNF'd this. I'm not a fan of what this book did. You have a girl who essentially is wounded at the very beginning of the book, and if she doesn't move to a different location, she cannot backtrack, she cannot go to locations that she's been to before. The illness, the thing that is causing her, the wound that will cause her to die if she stays, in one place too soon or too long. Her mother travels with her for a while. I think she's 9 at the beginning of this, maybe to the age of 12, but she's very young when she starts the book. I'm pretty sure she was 9. And the book just writes her in a way that doesn't make sense. She's very knowledgeable, but then also childlike. Her character was very contrasting to herself. There was one moment where she's hunting in the woods, and she learns how to make a spear and kill a boar as a 12-year-old. And I do remember that happened when she was 12. And I'm like, you don't have any hunting experience. Your father never took you hunting. This is not like an experience that you've had prior to having to leave your family, because her mother travels with her for a little bit, but then it ends up going back to her family and she just travels alone. And I think that happens when she's 12, like 11 or 12. So she's on her own. She has to learn how to hunt, how to steal. Like, I don't know. Wasn't for me. The author also was a little pushy with not needing to answer questions. There were several quotes in the book that were like, well, we don't need, some things are better left not understood. And I'm like, no, that's not a good narrative structure. Like, you can't tell me that you are writing a book and you are creating these really intricate like magic systems and things that this character runs into, but we're not going to explain any of it. It's not important. They're like, just ignore the details, come along with us. No, I don't want to come along for the ride. So I quit reading it. Anyway, the next and the last prediction that I made was Rakesfall. And this one I DNF'd very early on. I think A Short Walk Through a Wide World, I got to at least 40%, if not 50% before I gave up. Rakesfall, I didn't get to even 10% of the book. It just was not written for me, and I could not follow what was going on. We were following a couple of characters who were in like a TV reality series, maybe. And the series ends, there's like a cult following with the series trying to figure out who the characters are. This book's synopsis does not match what I was reading. The synopsis says that you have two characters who are intertwined, their souls are intertwined, and they go throughout time loving and hating each other and having to figure out how society will and will not impact their relationship with each other. And I think the two characters that we were reading in the reality show were supposed to be these two characters, but it switches, and this is when I quit reading it, it switches to a completely different perspective that has nothing to do with the reality show. It doesn't even mention the reality show. I don't even know if this is in the same world. And then we're on some other tangent with two other different characters, and I'm like, are these supposed to be the same people? I don't know. It was very, very weird for me, and I have heard people who love this book and say that it's absolutely amazing. I didn't understand what was going on, so it clearly was not written for me. on to the fun part where I get to tell you guys about the 5 books that I am predicting are going to be 5 stars for me. And I will tell you that I was a little bit pickier this round with picking books that I'm more solidly expecting them to be amazing reads. Not that I don't do that every time, but I was trying last time to give myself a little bit of variety. I had some horror, I had some fantasy, I had some mystery, like I mixed the genres. I'm going back to home base and we're focusing on fantasy. I'm focusing on fantasy genre blends. As I said in the intro, they're going to be historical fantasy. And that honestly was just by chance. They all happen to have some type of happen to have some type of historical impact or historical setting. And yeah, I'm hoping that if I get back to my roots, maybe I'm a little bit better at picking fantasy reads that I'm absolutely gonna love. They are all books that I am so excited to read. So we're gonna start with the one that I do think is kind of a gimme. I think that this book, out of all of these, has the best chance of getting a 5-star. And that is because I have read this series before. It is a series continuation. I do try not to put series continuations on this because it's not really fun for you guys. But I have given 2 other books in the series 5 stars. And so I am hoping this one will be as well. And that is the last book in the Lady Trent series. This is Within the Sanctuary of Wings. And I mean, I love these covers and these books. They're so, they're perfect. And their covers are like velvety. Anyway, I'm saying that this is going to be a 5-star read. I absolutely loved the 2nd book in the series and the 4th book in the series. They were both 5 stars. And I didn't put this in my predicting 5-star series, which I should have, like the one before this. But I'm going to say it this time. It's going to be my 5-star prediction. I think that the end of this series is going to go out with a bang. So fingers crossed. If you haven't heard me talk about Lady Trent, where have you been? Lady Trent is a scientist who studies dragons, and this is the 5th book in the series. Each book follows a different adventure, a different dragon that she is studying, and a different community that she gets to know. She travels all around the world. It starts at her, I think she's 25 or 26 when the book starts. And she is being told that she has to get married and settle down, and all she really wants to do is study dragons. And so she finds a way to do it. And she finds a way to become a woman who is doing a dangerous job that no one thinks that she should do, because this is historical. It is set in a time when women are expected to stay home and take care of their husbands, and that's it. They're not supposed to have jobs, and if they are going to have a job, then it needs to be something safe. So these are her memoirs. So each of the books, like I said, is a different dragon, a different community that she goes out and gets to know. So in the events of the last book, I'm excited to see where they head off. Next is The Daughter's War. This is the only one that might not be deemed historical because it's not set enough in our world. It is a war of the goblins in the Black Tongue Thief book. So in that universe, you travel back in time before the events of the Black Tongue Thief, which is why I'm saying it is still technically historical, just not historical by our means. And you're following the Daughter's War, the Goblin War, essentially, that leads up to the events in the Black Tongue Thief. So I am really excited to get back to Christopher Buehlman because I have really enjoyed the Black Tongue Thief. It was a 5-star read, and I like the horror components that he puts into his fantasy worlds. It's very intriguing to me. So hopefully this one will be another one that I love. Next is one that I have on my Libby holds right now, and I'm really excited to read it. It is probably my most anticipated release of the 4th quarter, and that's because it is a fantasy horror. It's the only fantasy horror that I can find in that quarter, and it's called Strange Beasts. Let me just read you the synopsis. So this says, in this fresh yet familiar gothic tale, part historical fantasy, part puzzle box mystery, the worlds of Dracula and Sherlock Holmes collide. I mean, I'm sold already. But it says, at the dawn of the 20th century in Paris, Samantha Harker, daughter of Dracula's killer, works as a researcher for the Royal Society for the Study of Abnormal Phenomena. But no one realizes how abnormal she is. Sam is a channel into the minds of monsters, a power that could solve the gruesome deaths plaguing the turn of the century Paris, or have her thrown into an asylum. I'm so excited for this, and I hope that it's 5-star. Next, we have The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt. This is another new release. I think it comes out in December. And this one, it got me because it says this is for fans of The Magician's Daughter and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which are two of my absolute favorite books from last year. And so I have to give this one a try. You follow Harriet Hunt, who I believe her father has just passed, and she lives in the estate that her father had. But she has kind of always, I think, been able to not really have a lot of responsibilities because her father is always taking care of things. And so now she has to figure out how to help this crumbling estate, how to keep herself safe because she is an unmarried woman. And she does that by looking into the gardens within this estate. They're supposed to be lush, magic-driven gardens, and there were like talks of like potential magical flora, and I'm excited. I'm excited for that in general, but also like a crumbling estate. It's a historical fantasy, and I feel like it's also going to be kind of cozy. So this one I'm excited for too. Last but not least, we have The Vampire of King Street. And this one, every time I see it on my library shelves, because I have it on hold, but it's on order, so it has not come into my library yet. But every time I see it, I just get a little like, ee! It's exciting because I love, this was one of the things in the synopsis. It says that it's for fans of Gail Carriger's Soulless, which I absolutely love that series. And it also talks about, this is following a lawyer. I can't remember her name, but she is freshly minted. Like, she doesn't really have any experience. And her first client is a vampire who is accused of murder. And she has to go about trying to figure out how to help him reclaim his innocence. I'm so excited. So I will say, I think this is the most exciting list that I've made for this experiment for a while. I have been kind of trying to branch out into other genres, and clearly I'm not great at finding 5-star reads for other genres. I'm okay. I wouldn't say like I'm terrible, but I definitely have, it's been a struggle the past couple of episodes, and so I'm hopeful that this one, it's gonna be a win. So let me know if you guys have read any of these books, if you are excited about any of them, if you have your own 5-star prediction list. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys are excited to read in the upcoming months. I am always excited to chat with you guys. If you are not in the chatty mood, leave a little vampire emoji in the comments for me, just so I know that you're here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.